Good evening. Two dots halfway through the Kuf Ted Zion Amud Aleph. We're continuing the next part of the Mishnah. They mentioned the case of the donkey after the first case of the wine and honey. And then the Razan asked why we need both. So Usricha, we need both cases of the honey wine and the donkey about the person who offers to say something. The Ashmin commented, only mentioned the case of the wine and honey. You might think only in the case where he made the condition that I'll save it for you if you pay me. Maybe then he has to pay. Because he destroyed his own wine physically with his hands. But in the case of donkey, where he didn't kill this donkey, the donkey died by itself by drowning. Maybe he should only receive just labor fees even when he made the condition. We only mentioned the case of the donkey. Maybe over there you might think he only gets his fee because it's happened by itself. But in the case of the wine and honey where he physically destroyed it, maybe he should always pay him full amount because he destroyed it himself. Both halachot teach you that you need the conditions. Let's say they made the condition and the guy went down to save the other person's donkey. He saves it, and then his own donkey then came up alive from the river. What's the halakha? Does he still get paid? God had mercy on him and saved his life, and he does get paid. The story of Safra was traveling with people, and pretty crazy. There was a lion that walked with them and guarded them. Every night they would give the lion a donkey that belonged to one of them, and the lion would eat it. They would switch off persons to offer their donkey for this guardian lion. When Rav Safra's turn came to offer his donkey, he gave his donkey to the lion, but it didn't eat it. Rav Safra quickly and made it a kinyan on his own donkey to get it back. So we see that he was able to take it back without having to split it with other people. Why did he have to reacquire it? It's true, he made it hefker. He made it hefker. He didn't make it hefker for everybody. He made it hefker just for the lion. And he didn't make it hefker for everybody. So then why would he have to reacquire it? He says to him, it's true, but he didn't want any safek. He didn't want any problems, so he just reacquired it by himself. Let's say he made the condition, went to save the other guy's donkey, and he failed. Does he still get paid? This is a nice question. You don't need my haskama. The Quran saying it's a nice question. He does get paid his fee, but not for his donkey. Someone who hires a worker, he hires somebody to bring cabbage or prunes to a sick person. He went and he found out the guy was sick. The guy who was sick had died or became healthy and no longer needed it. He still gets paid. So you see, even if you don't are unsuccessful, you still get paid. The says not a good proof. That's not comparable. He fulfilled the shlichut of bringing in the food. But regarding the donkey, he didn't save the donkey, therefore he doesn't receive it. Number 9. People traveling together in the desert. And a troop came to take their stuff. And they said, you know what? We'll take a ransom, $1,000, split it between all of you. We do not split it by person, but we split it by percentages of money that the person's carrying. So we don't go $100 each for 10 people, but rather we go according to the nadi that everybody has. If one guy has more money, he pays more. With less guy who has less money and pays less. They had a guide who was walking with them, the tour guide, to walk through the wilderness. They pay his fee for his ransom by person. But don't change what the minhag of the donkey drivers do. Meaning, if you have a different minhag when you're traveling with donkey drivers, you have to listen to them. The donkey driver is allowed to make a condition that whoever shall lose their donkey during their travel, they'll all split up and pitch in for a new one. But if the guy lost his donkey because he was negligent, you don't have to pay it. But if not negligent, they pay for it. If he says, instead of replacing my donkey, I'll give me an addi and I'll buy myself a new one. And Shum'inlo, we don't listen to him. Give him a new donkey. Gemara says, Pshita, of course. Why would they need to give him cash? Gemara says, maybe you might think that since he's on a donkey, it might be okay. Since he's guarding his donkeys, he has one. He still has donkey. He's still gonna be part of the guard. We want him to rebuy his second donkey that he had previously to make sure that he guards better, because the guy who's guarding two donkeys of his own guards better than if he only had one. A boat was traveling in the sea, and a big storm was threatening to flip it over. Therefore, the passengers wanted to lighten the load by throwing their stuff overboard. They calculate by portion of weight per person. They don't calculate by value. And don't change the minhag of the sailors if you have a different minhag. And the sailors, if they're traveling in a convoy of ships, are allowed to make a condition that whoever loses his boat, they can provide a new one for him. But the guy's boat lost with negligence, in Ma'amidin, you don't replace it. But if it was not negligent, Ma'amidin, you do replace it. But if you went to a place where the boats don't usually go, you don't go to the Bermuda Triangle, you don't provide him a new one because he was negligent. Gemara says, Pshita. No, that's the case of negligence. So why would you need to replace it? Gemara says, during Nisan, by the riverbank, you distance yourself one rope length distance from the riverbank, because it was the water wasn't so high. And during Tishrei, you do two rope lengths because the river had more water because of the winter months that had passed. Because during the months of Nisan, he went to the place of Tishrei and he got damaged. You might think maybe you should replace it, because the Daf should not keep the Azil, because people go there during other months. He didn't go to the Bermuda Triangle. He made a mistake in the months. You went somewhere that you could go, just not now. That is considered negligence, and you don't replace it. Number 9. A caravan was traveling in the desert, and a troop came against it and to try to steal stuff. One guy stood up and rescued it. He rescues for everybody. You take what you had back. But if before he does the rescue mission, he says, I'm saving everything for myself. It works. What's the case? If everybody can rescue it themselves, I feel safe on them. And the second case should also be split evenly. And if nobody else can rescue it, the guy did a solo mission, I feel then even in the first case, he should keep everything if no one else was able to do it. It says, over here where they were all partners. This is like a scenario where the partner may dissolve the partnership and just take his stuff that belongs to him. Amar Palig. Therefore, if the guy said, I'm rescuing for myself, he is dividing it and taking what he's rescuing his own item. Lo Mar, but he didn't say it. Lo Palig, he hasn't divided it, and therefore he has to split it. Rav Amar Ravaz is an explanation. Is referring to workers that were hired. And therefore, it's similar to halakha to Rav. If the guy wants to stop his work in the middle of the day, a person does not have to finish the day's work. He can leave in the middle of the day, and therefore this guy can back out of this partnership that they had and the workers, and just take whatever he can rescue, and that's it. But if he did not withdraw, if he did not specify that he's backing out, it's as if he's still belonging to his owner, and therefore it belongs to the owner still. But if he does withdraw, it's for a different reason. The pasuk says, you belong to God as slaves. You will not be slaves for someone else. Therefore, you cannot be forced to finish your days of work. I mean, if you got signed and you told the guy you're going to do it, it's one thing, but you're not required to finish because you only work for God. The B'rata's case is referring to where the guy rescued it only with very difficult situation. So if he revealed that he's going to rescue it and for himself, he's saying, I'm for myself. And therefore, they all gave up Yush and they said, okay, go for it. Whatever you get, you get. But if he did not reveal it and they weren't Mi'ayesh, then he splits it. New Mishnah. Hagozel says them v'natluha masikin. If someone steals a field from his friend, and the extortionists, people who are hired by the officers of the king who can just grab stuff, they took it from the robber. If it is a problem that they usually do, that they usually take stuff. Omer lo, the robber can tell the field, here's your field. Sorry, try to take it back. But if they took it only because the robber will claim what that means, the robber has to replace it. The Gemara says, right? The word masikin as an extortionist is not if you have that lashon in your Gemara, then it's not a mistake. And someone who wrote the Mishnah with a sadi, masikin, also not a mistake. Both good. Why? We see the word matzok uses a pressure. Right, the yachsinenne is referring to masikin, therefore we see that they also can use as oppression. Okay, so both words work in our Mishnah. Right, the Mishnah said, but if the field was taken because the robber has to replace it. What's that scenario talking about? If you want to tell me that the extortionist took the robber's field, but he didn't take other fields. We know that from the first case of the Mishnah, but just because the first case of the Mishnah said, are they picking out your property or are they going after everybody? Therefore, if it's not widespread, rather they're aiming for the robber, then he should not be patur. So what's this scenario of the end? It's referring to the case where someone showed the guy's field to him. Right? So since he caused that person's field to get confiscated, he's chayav. Another version. They went over to the robber and I told him, show us your lands. When he showed them the lands, the stolen fields along with his lands, and therefore they took it. Therefore, since he caused that field to get confiscated, he has to replace it. There's a certain man who showed the Reish Kanuta, the head of the Jewish people, he showed his storage of wheat to the extortionists, and they confiscated it. They brought him for judgment. They forced him to pay it. These rabbis were saying together, they said to each other, Dina or Knasa? You made him pay. Was that a Dina halacha? Or you fined him? Knas. Amarle. We said in our Mishnah that if it's because of you and you got stolen, you have to pay it, and we established that case where you showed it to him. So we see over here that if you show your chayav, so it's a halacha, not a knas. After he left, he said, well, what's the difference? Who cares whether that's a din or a knas? What difference? Because if it's a din, the halacha is that if this scenario is your chayav, then we can learn from it and apply it elsewhere. But if it's a knas, then you can't explain it elsewhere. We're not telling the knas logam. How do we know that from a knas you can't teach it elsewhere in similar cases? But it says, the first psak halacha they gave for nezek and damage that's not visible is hezek she'en nikar. Sorry, is if someone was mithameh someone else's produce, or you made their item yain nesach, their wine yain nesach, you have to pay. Hazru lamar, and then they added afterward af hamidameya. So to someone who else mixes tiruma into chulin, non-tiruma stuff, making it also tiruma problem, then it's to separate again. So these three scenarios, you're making tameh, yain nesach, or making someone else's tiruma into chulin and causing problems, then those are all hezek she'en nikar, non-recognizable damage, and you're chayav. So they added that last case. That sounds like hazru in, only because they added it afterward, you're chayav. Halah hazru lo. But if they did not added it later, you'll be patur. My time, why not? Lav mishum knasahu, knas lo gamirna, because it must be a knas, and we don't learn from other cases of knas unless you have a psak. So Mar says that's not a good proof that we don't learn from knas. Maybe originally they thought that only in the cases of large loss you're chayav, like in the case of tuma or wine. But regarding Tiruman and Cholin, that's not a major loss. They could still use it for other stuff. And in the end, they added also things that are minor losses. But it wasn't the case of Knas. Okay. Annie, is that true that it's a minor loss and we don't learn that concept of Knas, that you can't learn Knas elsewhere? But Tani Abu had Rabbi Avin, he learned the Braita a different way. Originally, the case of Tum'ah and mixing Tirumah. And then he added the case of Nesech. Hazru'in, that sounds like only if because they added it afterward. Lo Hazru, but if they didn't add it, they would be a patur. Maybe you could say from here that you don't learn Knas to elsewhere. So when I says la, no. Originally they held like Rabbi Avin. That's why you might think that Yain Nesech is different. Ubasof Sabri Kabimia, then they held like Rabbi Avin. What does that mean? Me'ikra Sabri Kabimia, originally they held like Rabbi Avin. Tamar Rabbi Avin Zarak Hais Mitikat Arba Lasof Arba. If someone shot an arrow on Shabbat for the 4 amot Chayav Mita for traveling in public property, so you launch the arrow from one location A and it's traveling 4 amot to B in different reshut Chayav Mita. So now, during that flight, the karashira in it tore someone's clothing as it traveled. Patur, you're patur from paying the clothing. Why? Because he's chayav mita. Meaning, the second he lets go of the arrow is now on the projection to fly through more than 4 amot, and therefore he's chayav mita. The second he lets go, and therefore when it tore the silk, the guy's clothing, you're patur. So we see in this case also regarding the yayin nesech, as soon as he picked up the wine, he was stealing it, and Yachayav money. So since he picked up the guy's wine to do Yain Nesach, he was Chayav, but then afterward he poured the Yain Nesach, and he was Chayav Mita afterwards. So first he was Chayav on money, and then Chayav on the Mita. It wasn't at the same time. And therefore, the halacha is that the Holy Rabbi Avin that teach you that only by the case of Shabbat it's a 2-in-1, but Yain Nesach it's theft and then mita, and therefore you still be chayav for the money. Then they ended up holding Rabbi when he picked up the wine, he acquired it. And I apologize. Sorry. The first case, Rabbi Avin holds that when he picked it up to do Yain Nesech, it's a 2-for-1, Yain Nesech and stealing at the same time, and therefore you patur because you're Chayav Mita, just like the arrow. And Rabbi Yirmiyah holds that no, it's stealing first and then Chayav Mita, and therefore you Chayav on both. And that's why they bring back this case, that scenario we brought Yain Nesech second to teach you that you are a Chayav. Rav Huna bar Yehuda went to a place called Bei Abiyoni. After coming to Rava, he came to Rava. Rava told him, "Klum ma'aseh b'yadcha." No, any halacha stories happen to you? Amarle Yisrael shanasu over chachamim ubeharab went to chaver b'aledi. It was a case where a Jew was forced by goyim to pay money, and he showed them his friend money. V'chayav told him to pay for it. Amarle told him, "Go return the money to them." The Tanya, Israel Shanasul, the Jew was forced by goyim to show them the friend's money. Patur, the Imna Talban, but if he handed it over to them with his hand, chayav. If he showed the money without his own, without being forced, it's as if he took it in his hand and handed it over. And in that scenario, if you volunteered it. There's a story about a guy who showed the wine of Rav Mari to the goyim. They told him, pick it up and bring it to the king's palace. Right? So not only did he show it to them, they forced him to bring it. So does that count as carrying it to them? He brought it. You're patur. But we know that if you handed it over physically, you'll be chayav. So why'd you say patur? That's when they didn't take the money originally, but he physically brought it out. He's like, "Oh, let me bring it to you. You bring it. You go into the guy's house and bring it out to them. You bring out the safe. Then you'd be chayav." But over here, but over here where he showed them the wine already, they already practically owned it. It's already gone, and therefore when he brought it over, he basically brought up their stuff, and therefore he'd be patur. Amar lo anas, if the extortionist told someone, Hoshet li pikia amir zeb, hand me, pass me the bundle of straw. Careful, remember that word pass. Or eshkol anavim zeh, or pass me the cluster of grapes. V'hoshit lo, and he passed them chayav. So we see a chayav against Rav Asher. What does it say? That's the scenario where they were on two sides of the river. So Rav Asher said your only chayav is when they're there and it's already theirs for the taking, and you just physically hand it over. That doesn't mean you're chayav. But over here, you passed it over the river, and therefore you'd be chayav because it wasn't theirs yet. They can also prove from Mishnah's wording. The Tani Hoshet, look Tani 10, because the Mishnah said over there, the Brita said over there, pass and not give. I mean, it's good proof that in the case of the river you're chayav, but generally you're not. There was a trap of fish or animals that two people were fighting over. One guy said it's mine, and the other guy said it's mine. One guy just took it and gave it to the king's officer. Like, if I can't have it, nobody can have it. Baya says he should be batur because he could say, Anna ki mastri. When I handed it over mine. Rava said, no. You can't believe him. If we're not sure whose it is, you can't just hand it over. Put him in galut until he can retrieve it, and we'll decide who belongs to. We'll continue tomorrow.